While we were going down the stairs, I couldn't stop thinking about Himitsu's anguished expression when she was looking out the window of her grandma's house. And it wasn't a sign of despair. She looked more like a princess who wanted to be rescued. We walked out to the street. A black Toyota was waiting in front of the hotel. The brute in the driver's seat stared at me unblinkingly. Meanwhile, the town had already awoken. People went to bed early here, but woke up just as early. Smiling old women were walking the streets, smiling old men were opening their shops, sleepy tourists were crawling out of their hotels. Perhaps I wouldn't win in a fight with Ryunosuke-san. There's no way he'd start shooting here and now. I was quite confident in my sprinting ability. That's exactly what I figured. He was gonna get outside and just bolt. Let's go, homie. I'm sorry, Ryunosuke-san. He looked at me confused. Let's finish the conversation another time. I broke into a run. The wind was whipping against my face, my lungs burned from the freezing morning air. The unfamiliar voice demanding I stop was becoming quieter and quieter. I didn't dare look back, couldn't even think about it. The sound of the car engine was getting closer. I made a turn into a narrow alley between houses. They would shoot me in the back in broad daylight, after all. A resort town isn't the best place to chase your target by car, and it seemed that Ryunosuke-san and his henchmen had realized that too. The sound of the car engine and the screeching of tires disappeared completely. I ran onto the main street and quickly looked around. Everything seemed to be fine. I caught my breath and quickly thought over what I would do now. Since they couldn't catch me, they would first try to block all my escape routes, which at minimum were the railway station and the hotel I could have returned to. I wouldn't give Ryunosuke-san the satisfaction. The target was clear and so was the route. I had to talk with Himitsu no matter what, even if it was the last thing I did in my life. Hell yeah. Fuck yeah. What could a normal person say about running? Most likely that aerobic exercise is good for the cardiovascular system. But if you think about it, that's a very shallow and incomplete conclusion. I was never particularly sporty, but at the same time I had no extra fat on me, didn't smoke, and occasionally played football. Running a few kilometers to Himitsu's grandma's house? Easy. Of course it was foolish to try and outrun a car. If Ryunosuke-san went there immediately, I had no chance. After a few minutes I slowed down a bit. It was impossible to cover the entire distance at this pace. After catching my breath, I fell into a rhythm and was running effortlessly, pushing my leg, and it felt as if I was soaring up a few meters and then down to earth, bouncing softly just to go up again. It's hard to run and think at the same time. I wasn't even trying, everything was clear anyway. My way lay across the little hill, and down below I could see green fields separated by a thin scar of railway. A train was slowly going in the direction of Tokyo, working its way around the mountain that had loomed over the landscape like a silent guardian. I was running forward while the train was heading in the opposite direction. I wondered if that ill-mannered girl was inside, returning home. The road led to the forest, though I could barely call that a road. It was more like a narrow path snaking among the trees. What if this was that suicide forest? I looked around as I ran, but noticed nothing unusual. There were no dead bodies, ghosts, or even wild animals. Then I quickened my pace and soon ran across a wooden bridge. The planks under my feet strained and squeaked like an old man scolding children. A bird's cry came from behind me like a scream of despair. I tripped over a tree root and fell to the ground, seriously bruising my palms. That only stopped me for a couple of seconds, and there I was again, running onward through the strange forest. As if I were making my way through all the obstacles of life, leaving behind so many things that had been holding me back. The sun's rays were penetrating the dense canopy of trees. I was sweating. My sweat was rolling into my eyes. Salty, nasty, burning. I had to wipe them constantly. I was blinking so often that it felt like I was in a film by Brothers Lumiere, going 16 frames per second. After some time, my heart started making itself known. Its beats became clearer and more frequent. Every beat echoed in my head, blood pulsating in my temples, ears popping, and I had to swallow nervously, which wasn't easy as my mouth was absolutely dry. Finally, I saw a gap between the trees and dashed toward the small, at least a couple centuries old house. I was near. The plots of land were situated next to each other without any system or plan. Bigger, smaller, triangular, square, rectangular. Some lacked any buildings at all, while others just had shacks built on them, and others had decent houses. But in general, there were no wealthy peasants in this village. No Kalaks to dispossess, at least. I sniffed and immediately started to lose my breath. I felt more respect for Ryunosuke Ito for making his way up in the world from here. Usually great figures come from the lowest social classes. Genius never makes it to the second generation. Having experienced their share of loss and suffering, they often project their distorted sense of justice onto other people. There are many such examples in history, not just Russia's history. I was running on the compacted clay that served in place of asphalt here, paper shacks passing before my eyes. A seemingly 100-year-old woman brandished a broom at me and shouted something. Who even runs in the middle of the day? I was too tired to react in any way. There were about 100 meters left to Himitsu's house. A last dash, and I saw the familiar roof around the corner. It happens often. You'll remember separate details out of the whole picture. Those details look like different colored pieces in a puzzle with 1,000 pieces. All the roofs in this village are more or less the same. All the houses were more or less the same height. I instantly recognized the one I was looking for. After running into the yard, I doubled over with my hands on my knees. The air was hissing out of my open mouth. Here I was. Ryonosuke-san's car was nowhere to be seen. Tried to take a step forward, but couldn't even raise my leg. It seemed to be made of stone, rooted to the ground. I hit my knees a few times and slowly wobbled to the door. Please be home. Just be home, I was whispering. I need just a minute. No, even half a minute. 5 seconds. 5 seconds would be enough to tell you everything. Please just be home. I heard the sound of a car somewhere in the distance, but the next second everything was again filled with the normal sounds of a village. The cries of cattle and poultry, the cracking of firewood, the grating of a saw, and the knocking of hammers. I felt like I didn't belong here, first in this typical Japanese countryside, and then in Japan altogether. I couldn't imagine how I could have lived like this. Even with Himitsu. Yeah, no, you living in this Japanese countryside, that's just such wild speculation. It could never happen. It absolutely wasn't my thing. No, definitely not. I immediately wanted to return to Tokyo with its crazy speed of life and pulse of 200 beats a minute. That's where my heart was supposed to beat so quickly. Not here, at the front door of the house where multiple generations of Ito's family had been raised. I knocked, but nobody replied. I kept knocking again and again, and then ran to the backyard. Everything was closed, and it was clear there was no one at home. Well played, Ito. Taking Himitsu away at the first sign of danger. What if it was her idea? After all, yesterday she... No, and no. I was afraid to believe it, but there was a possibility that Himitsu had decided to leave herself in order to avoid seeing me. I busted in the garden door and walked inside. I checked all the rooms, but the house was empty. I returned to the living room and checked everything again. The pink elephant was sitting on the table. How could I not have noticed it? It was sitting motionlessly on its pedestal, staring at me with its cold black eyes. There's a note? What was that? A message? Or was it Ito again? I sank powerlessly to the floor and put my head on the table. The stuffed animal was emotionless, but I still seemingly could see a sad expression on its face. What, your mistress left you? I addressed it. So we're the only two left. I yanked the elephant by its trunk, it tilted and fell to the ground, and a little folded piece of paper slipped out from under it. It rose a couple centimeters over the table and it slowly glided down. As if enchanted, I watched its flight, and for a long time after, couldn't shake a strange numbness from my body. Nico-kun, crossed out. Sorry, but crossed out. It'd be better if both of us crossed out. The note had obviously been rewritten several times and was never finished. What did it change? What did it matter who had left the elephant and the stupid piece of paper here and why? The most important thing was that it was Himitsu's handwriting, the way she chose to bid me farewell. Maybe these were her last words. So did it really matter now who was right and who was wrong? I wonder if this elephant felt as lonely as I did, and if it was as worried as I was. I always thought that objects like it have their own egregore, and thanks to our thoughts and memories gain their own souls. The elephant had absorbed all my love for Himitsu, and all her love for me, and then it was thrown away like an out-of-fashion sweater. Getting rid of things that remind you of a person you love is the point of no return. The sound of a car engine reached me from outside. I had no strength left to run, so I walked into the yard, tensed up and prepared for the worst. My arms were impotently limp, the last remaining energy leaving me. Ito appeared from around the corner, accompanied by a couple goons. Got you now, Nikolai. Where's Himitsu? She doesn't want to see you. Did she say so herself? Yes. I don't know what you did, but in the end, I'm glad that my daughter was able to make the right choice. I warned you, more than once. She made her choice and I made mine. He could be lying. Probably was. The expression with which Himitsu had looked at me out of the window, that unfinished note, that damned pink elephant. Did she realize what the consequences would be for me? And if she did she care? It took me too long to realize I love her, so here we are. I smirked and closed my eyes. I assume this is the end? I don't like cheap melodrama. Ito said coldly and drew his pistol from a pocket at his chest. I'll at least tell her. I knew full well that he wouldn't. Tell Himitsu that I wish her happiness. Ito lowered his pistol for a second as a shadow of doubt crossed his mind. Theatrics even in the face of death. He grimaced in disgust and cocked the gun. The shot didn't come. I was counting instinctively. 1, 2, 3. To dirty my hands. He said in a squeamish tone and lowered his weapon. This time really is the last one. Run away. Run and don't look back. Try to get as far as possible from me and my daughter, Tokyo, and even Japan if you can. You're still young, you can start over. In 10 years, you won't remember this conversation. He sighed. Even if Himitsu will never know about this. I don't want her to even imagine it could be such a monster. Your love didn't work out. That happens too. It's nobody's fault. Where do I go now? Forward, with your head up high. Just fight your way through life like you've been doing so far. Don't let one wrong turn become a dead end. Now it was Ryunosuke-san's turn to be way too pretentious, and I found it funny. I smirked and immediately felt strength returning to me. After all, nothing stopped me from dying whenever. So he'll just let me go like this. I'm sure that's what Himitsu would want. Thank you. I said unexpectedly, even to myself, passed by them as if in slow motion and walked down the street in the direction of the town. I could try to find Himitsu again, or I could return to Tokyo. But I clearly realized that this chapter of my life was over. I'd been running a marathon, but I slipped and fell before the finish line. I had to make a choice. To keep lying where I was, or resisting all pain and suffering, stand up and go the rest of the way, receive the honorary certificate and a sack of rubbish for an award. After all, the life of every person is a race where the goal is under a tombstone with their name on it. All we can choose is whether it's a nameless wooden cross or a fancy stone monument. And I decided not to end my race early. The wind, unusually warm for this season, came down from the mountains and blew against my back, sweeping away the remains of my previous life. Suddenly I felt an unusual lightness. Everything that had happened over the last weeks left only a feeling of slight sadness, plus my love for Himitsu that didn't go anywhere. It would live there, deep inside, for the rest of my life and become a story. The story would be forgotten, as there wouldn't be anyone to tell it to convey everything I had felt then. And now another story was beginning for me. A different story. Oh? What's, Oh! 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 So I did fuck up the ending. That is what happened, huh? Interesting. Well, obviously I can't just leave it there. Okay. So I'm getting close to the end of this recording session anyway, but what I'm gonna do is, before I end it, I'm gonna skip ahead to where there's something new happening, and that's where I'll cut it off at. So I'm gonna pause here, I'm gonna load up from the top of the game, and just keep running, making all the optimal choices. You know, if there's any big scene changes, I'll pop in and show something, but yeah, we're just gonna fucking keep trucking ahead. So, until then. Alright, so I found one decision that apparently leads to two different things. One choice favors Catherine, one choice favors Himitsu. Yeah, here we go. Still, I need to decide what to do next. Indulge in the aforementioned melancholy all the way until evening, or try to do something. I forget what this was talking about. Something about, I don't know, something about Catherine and Himitsu. Fuck if I know what the specifics were. Didn't know where to look for Catherine, but desperate on to the house. And you give the choice of either go for a walk or stay at home. Apparently, the first time around, I chose stay at home, which is something that favors Catherine. So I'm guessing that going for a walk is an event that'll lead to points up with Himitsu. So obviously, let's go for a walk. Let's see where that leads us. Right across from my house on the other side of the street was Himitsu's. Our district was strikingly eclectic, combining both the traditional Japanese style and European mini-manor houses like hers. Himitsu was half Russian, but I didn't think she'd want to live in an izba. I would sometimes go to my grandparents' place when I was little. They had a typical Russian izba. Himitsu's grandparents, on the other hand, lived in a traditional Japanese paper house. A 0 out of 3 on the scale of 3 piglets, I'd say. Nika-ken. Apparently I got lost in daydreaming. Hey, how are you doing? Himitsu's walking back from the direction of the market with 2 large bags in her hands.
Fine, you?
Me too.
Going somewhere?
Just decided to take a walk. Why?
Nothing, just
She kept to a minimal level of politeness. Minimal for her. Listen, I started merrily. Somehow, even to myself, that merriness was unexpected. I wanted to say sorry about yesterday. I don't know what came over me.
It's alright, I understand.
Really, I'm serious. I don't think you did anything wrong. It's all about me. If the girl tells you it's not about you, it's definitely about you. And what if it's a guy? What if it's me? It's definitely stupid or worse. There, you know what, forget it. Weather's great today. Let's take a walk.
You mean right now?
He needs to slightly raise the bags, implying that she had things to do. Yeah, right now. Is it the weekend or not?
I don't know, Nika-kun. I still need to make lunch.
You can't work all the time and never rest. And really, not only did Himitsu regularly make food for me, she also saddled herself with all the chores of her own household after the divorce of her parents. So let's go. I hopped to her and snatched the bags out of her hands with a quick motion.
Nika-kun?
Himitsu protested, but her voice sounded reluctant, too timid, like when we were little.
Fine.
She pouted and sternly marched off to her house. I was still thinking about Catherine, but decided to take a breather. I could postpone dealing with her till Monday. Although I couldn't just cast it out of my mind, I needed to distract myself. Wait, is when I stay home, is that when Catherine comes in and tries to fuck? Is that the event that led to? Fuck, I think it was. Maybe Himitsu wasn't the best option for it for many reasons, but fate itself seemed to have brought us together this morning. I didn't believe in coincidences like that, but many things in life were hard to explain logically.
Here I am.
Himitsu's sing-song voice came from the doorway. She quickly closed the door and ran up to me. A happy smile shone on her face. Well, let's go.
Yes, but where to?
Where do you want to go? I hadn't actually thought about that, because I would have been just fine strolling through the streets if I were alone.
I don't know, you choose.
She stared at me with a serious expression. Maybe in different circumstances, Himitsu would have simply said, anywhere with you. But not today. Definitely not today. On the other hand, the emotional part of the situation didn't matter much. I would still have to be the one to make the decision. Fine, fine. Let's go to the amusement park. I think you've wanted to for a while.
Have I? Well, maybe I have.
If you don't want to.
Stop it, Nika-kun. Let's go.
Wait, we get a whole ass amusement park date? I missed out on an amusement park date? She playfully took me by the arm and dragged me along. Hey, easy, girl. You're telling me my ass missed out on a whole ass amusement park date? Shit. My parents had told me stories about the VDNKH, but for a while after my first visit to Japanese amusement park, I thought that was the reason they had left the Union. It was a real world of childhood, a collection of dreams recreated in reality. These days, I barely found any of that interesting. Himitsu, however, seemed to be really excited, just like a kid. Excited about the candy floss, the roundabouts, even the haunted house.
Let's go.
She whined. You sure you're not afraid?
I'm not. I mean, I am, but there isn't really anything scary in there.
I mostly didn't care, but the idea of haunted houses always seemed stupid to me. I didn't like horror movies either. Real life could be much scarier. And my life right now wasn't far off from one of Hitchcock's films. So you want to get scared even though you know there's nothing to be afraid of.
Well, no, but...
Difficult questions weren't Himitsu's strong suit after all.
Let's just go, Nika-kun. You said it. Today's the weekend, and you're out here grumbling.
People must simply want a shake-up, an injection of adrenaline to distract themselves from the daily grind and feel a surge of emotion. That must have been why horror stuff like that didn't attract me. My life was virtually overflowing with emotion already. Alright, alright. Hell yeah. I missed out on this? I had to deal with the awkward Catherine trying to force herself on Nikolai scene, and I missed out on cute amusement park date where she like golds onto his arm. Oh my god, I missed out heavy. God damn. The haunted house was filled with all kinds of paper mache yokai, werewolves, women with long necks, and other darkspawn from Japanese folklore. I wouldn't have been scared if I knew why these things were supposed to be scary. For example, the drunkard raccoon seemed pretty cute to me. We were moving forward pretty slowly, partly because it was dark in here. Himitsu tightly clasped my arm, and would squeeze it so hard at scary moments that it hurt. Hey, when's the scary part supposed to start?
You're always like this.
What about me? What about me? What matters is that you like it. Truth be told, I had already started to get really bored when suddenly... something jumped at me out of the darkness. I sprang back, dragging Himitsu along, made a wild swing in the direction of the jumping something. The ghost cracked apart and sank to the floor with a distinctive sound of tearing cardboard. What? What the hell was that?
A Kijo.
Himitsu laughed.
I knew you'd like it.
What? Damn it. After that, we started moving even slower, with me now constantly throwing glances left and right, unwilling to die from a heart attack at the tender age of 18.
Didn't you say there was nothing to be afraid of?
There isn't. I was just startled. It can happen to anyone.
Yeah, sure.
It can, I responded rudely, my heart beating like crazy. Fine, what do you want me to say? Yeah, I got scared.
I'm glad.
Glad about what? Are you a sadist now?
No, it's just...
She grew embarrassed and dropped her eyes as if she wasn't going to continue. Still, she found the resolve.
I'm glad you managed to distract yourself.
Distract myself from what? I asked, uncomprehending. Himitsu's gaze, filled with anxiety and sadness, made me understand. You know, sorry for my behavior yesterday and all, but I'm fine. I don't need to distract myself from anything. Even the buzzing yokai in the distance seemed to have grown silent for a moment, captivated by our conversation.
Sorry, I didn't want to start it all over again.
No, of course, it's not about you. I mean, I said as much myself. It's never about you. It can never even be about you. What am I even saying?
Nika-kun.
My head suddenly started to ache. Thoughts about Catherine rushing over me with new strength, making the pain unbearable. Enough, please. Stop pretending we're still 7 years old. Was that it? Was this really what it's been about all the time? Did Himitsu desperately resist growing up, thinking she could live her entire life acting like a child? Children are afraid of pain, of sadness, of being scolded, of being shown their mistakes. They hate when their favorite toys are taken away. Children don't want to draw conclusions and learn, don't want to grow up. Himitsu, enough.
But...
She seemed to want to say something, but stopped when she looked at me. Please stop. Don't you understand you're only making it worse? Don't worry about me like this. I'm not a kid. I can make my own decisions. Oh yeah, what happened to it's not about her. Whatever they are.
Nika-kun, please don't.
Her small shoulders trembled and the ghost fell silent.
You can be with her. You can be with whoever you want. Just don't be... like this.
She was no longer crying, she was weeping. I was too riled up to pay any attention. I blamed Himitsu. Blamed probably for too much and undeservingly. At that time, I simply couldn't stop. It's cowardly to shift your problems to other people, even more so to those who are close to you. When you have no more strength left to cope with them yourself, sometimes there's just no other way. Or maybe I was just making excuses. It's sickening enough already. Then there's you. You want to support me? Then stop prying into my soul all the time. I'll sort it out myself and tell you my decision. Himitsu let out one last sob and ran away, breaking cardboard yokais on her way. The door swung closed behind her, and I was left alone in this comically phony hell, while the real demons were eating at me from the inside. Enough already! Last week, my life had turned into some shitty TV drama with a cheap plot. Unfortunately, it wasn't actually a TV show and couldn't as easily be turned off. Were I to continue on the same course, it would only get worse from here. And in a couple of years, there would be nothing left. Only pain and void, like after Mom and Dad's death. I didn't want to lose anyone else close to me. It didn't matter what I really felt. My feet carried me to the exit as if of their own accord.